Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach Ruin came out a few days ago and it confirmed a lot. Gave us a lot of new information and lore for us to chew on until Help Wanted 2 comes out later this year. Subscribe and let's get straight into everything we learn. First of all, it was finally confirmed which ending of Security Breach was the true canon ending. The ending that was obviously canon from the beginning and is now confirmed to be canon is the Princess Quest ending. That's right, we got given a load of comic book strips within the game to show us which endings were just made up and drawn by Gregory, who in the books also creates fictitious stories, and trust me, these books are a must read. Like, you literally must read them now. But we'll get into that stuff later. But not only did we get a comic book showing every other ending, even the Burn Trap ending, besides the Princess Quest ending, but we can also see that the Princess Quest arcade machines have been finished and beaten, including the one Gregory beats in Vanny's lair, which has a golden sword going straight through it, showing that it was indeed completed and Vanny was freed by defeating Glitchtrap, or more so the part of the virus focused on mimicking Afton. Meaning Burn Trap, aka the Mimic with the suit and corpse, never ended up existing in this canon timeline. Basically, if Gregory didn't play Princess Quest, then he would have gone down, battled Burn Trap, escaped, but because he played Princess Quest and freed Vanny from Glitchtrap, Burn Trap just isn't mimicking Afton anymore and has gone back to his default state. And no, these two endings can't really work side by side, considering in the Burn Trap ending, it's only Gregory and Freddy on the hill and Freddy is full body completely fine, but in the Princess Quest ending, he gets literally destroyed and only his head escapes, plus Vanessa is there with them, so the two actual endings to the endings contradict each other. We have more evidence for the Princess Quest ending being canon, but I'll get into that later. So after the Princess Quest ending, sometime later, Gregory sends a message to Cassie to come to the Pizzaplex because he's trapped under Roxy's Raceway after the blob escaped through the sinkhole and most likely was the cause of the earthquake that destroyed the Pizzaplex. Cassie then repairs a few security nodes and transforms Sun and Moon into Eclipse, fries Monty in a lake, hides from Freddy, who disappears immediately because he's not in the system, to the point that the only way the Mimic could even control Freddy was if he was literally down with him. But then Cassie also gives a voice back to Chica, and then unfortunately deactivates her animatronic friend Roxy. She then travels underground, all the way underground, even further below the Burn Trap boss fight area, and eventually completely shuts down the MXES security system, before destroying a concrete wall blocking off the exit for Gregory, who we eventually find, and that's not Gregory. That's right, that's officially the Mimic from the Tales from the Pizzaplex books that I've been arguing is in the game's timeline for months now, and I am very happy to have it confirmed, and I really don't see how this can be a parallel Mimic, and why we need to create a backstory for a character who has about 8 books of backstory already. Anyways, Gregory tells you that he and his friend, which would be Vanessa, are gonna help her get out of there as the Mimic begins to chase you. This leads us to 3 different endings, which I'll get into all of them later, but the main one, which everyone usually gets in their first playthrough, is where you successfully flee from the Mimic and head back up the elevator, only for Gregory, at least probably actually Gregory, to explain the situation to you and decide that he can't let you leave in case it's following her. Or maybe it was the Mimic again, now trying to turn her against him. But let's backtrack for a minute here, and who exactly is Cassie? Well, we figure out throughout the game that it's actually Cassie's birthday the day this game takes place, because of Eclipse wishing her a happy birthday and Roxy doing the same. And we learn at her previous birthday at the Pizzaplex, her friends just didn't show up, and she was left on her own, which that's when Gregory comes into the picture and comforts her, and that's how the two become friends. We learn that Cassie's favorite animatronic was Roxy, who she seemingly also found comfort from when she was alone on her birthday, which makes her having to deactivate her at the end even more sad. Through the collectibles and a few voice lines in the game, we learn that Cassie's dad used to work at the Pizzaplex, and that his favorite animatronic was Glamrock Bonnie. By the end of the game, it seems like she was killed by Gregory after falling into Mimic's trap. However, a small theory that I have at the moment is that Roxy saying Cassie after the credits could possibly hint that Cassie may possess Roxy after dying. However, if Cassie somehow, and probably didn't actually die by the elevator falling, it's very possible that the Mimic will try and manipulate Cassie into working for it by using Gregory's betrayal as a basis. Theory territory aside, and let's move on to Mexus. It turns out that it wasn't actually Glitch Trap or anything trying to kill us because it was evil. It was because it was trying to stop us from deactivating the security nodes, as it was literally the security stopping the Mimic from escaping, and anyone from getting close. The acronym MXES I think may stand for Mimic X Entrapment System, as its main goal is to obviously keep anyone from freeing the Mimic. In this room we can also actually find Gregory's backpack and marks coming out from the vent on the floor that's connected to the Mimic room, as if Gregory just escaped the Mimic before the vent collapsed on it and it then struggled to reach him. But either way, that's why, after being chased, he dropped his walkie-talkie that the Mimic was able to then use to lure Cassie to the building. It's also then extremely likely that Gregory and Vanessa were the ones who created the Mexus program and installed the security nodes throughout the building, as we know they're still in contact and working together, and they're both incredibly smart. The reason it's modeled similar to Glitch Trap / Fanny may be because Vanessa may have wanted to repurpose Fanny from something she was forced into and something that ruined her own and so many others' lives into something good to stop it from hurting anyone ever again. What the Mimic forced her into is now what keeps it trapped. Speaking of Vanny, and the Vanny mask is something I wasn't expecting to just allow the user to just phase through things. That was completely unexpected. But still, the fact that you need the Vanny mask to deactivate the security nodes basically confirms that Vanessa made the program. And then with Gregory's bag and such underground, it seems like Gregory was also involved. Throughout the game, we also see Helpy return to give us tips, but something you may have missed is that sometimes Helpy actually looks different, with orange eyes and a little glitch on his head. This is showing that the Mimic is also infecting the Vanny mask, and that's why the only times it changes to its Mimic form is when it's talking about either not thinking about what you're doing, just doing it, deactivating the pesky security nodes, and to go down under the raceway. The Mimic also infects the chapter descriptions on the pause menu too, basically reiterating the same don't think, just do attitude. But anyway, let's move on to the Mimic itself, and oh my god, it is finally officially confirmed that the Mimic is in the game timeline. I've never been so stunned at a reveal like that one, because we've been fighting for the Mimic for a while now. Him literally being here should be enough proof, but there's also an ending that I'll get into later that directly mimics the Burn Trap ending, and a remake of Pizza Party was also included in the cut ending, so I wonder who would have taken Glitch Trap's place. But basically, to catch everyone up on the Mimic story so far, Mimic is the physical endoskeleton built by Edwin Murray in the books, while the Mimic 1 program is what runs it. Edwin's son David dies, he destroys the Mimic out of anger and abandons it in the warehouse. And when Fazbear Entertainment goes to collect it, the Mimic mimics Edwin's actions and kills the collectors. And this happens at minimum twice. Eventually they get hold of the Mimic and they create a line of Mimic robots, all connected to the Mimic 1 program, to just sit in their establishments throughout the years and scan all the animatronics to be able to recreate their performances easily. One day, however, the Mimic then sees William murder the original children in what it recalls to be a game of hide and seek. Keep that in mind for later. The main story then happens and everything ends at FNAF 6 like usual. But when Fazbear Entertainment start back up and start working on the VR game, they gather and then scan the Mimic circuit boards from all of them, including the one filled with Edwin's agony. And the program is then in everything and learns everything about Fazbear Entertainment, including something it seems to have a deeper connection to, the missing children's incident, which is recreated in the VR game. The Mimic then takes multiple forms throughout the years, and in this case becomes the Seeker, Glitch Trap. It also becomes David's favorite animatronic Tiger Rock in the VR system, and a whole load of other costumes in both the books and the games. It eventually infects Vanessa as we see in Help Wanted, and at some point Gregory, which is when the whole Patient 46 thing happens. The program is eventually put into the Pizzaplex, and it turns everyone aggressive and infects a whole lot of the attractions, to the point where the Tiger Rock story is basically a retelling of what happens when the virus enters your mind through the VR headset. internet, and how it warps your perception of reality. While the Mimic 1 virus/program is doing all of that, the main physical Mimic endoskeleton is sent to the FNAF 6 location, while the Pizzaplex is being built, and it then kills all the workers and a whole lot of kids there. They seal it off, and then years later, after the Princess Quest ending happens, Vanessa and Gregory go back down there and trap it down even further, creating the Mexus system to ensure it stays down there and locked behind the wall. Then, Ruin happens where it lures Cassie down to let it free. The other two endings in the game are interesting. The first one to talk about is what's called the Scooper ending, where the Mimic wears a costume literally trying to become Gregory, and then chases you into this weird section of the underground where there's a scooper that seemingly defeats the Mimic. I don't think this ending is the canon one, as it would be really abrupt to end a villain like the Mimic like this, but I do like how the ending solidifies that one. Despite Burntrap no longer actually being real, the Mimic was Burntrap in that ending and in that scenario where Gregory doesn't play Princess Quest and free Vanessa. We were right about that, with the Mimic and Scooper outright paralleling the Burntrap and Blob. And 2, solidifying that this is the book Mimic, who changes costumes repeatedly, giving us a less than subtle nod to that feature of its character. I really don't see how this could be a parallel. The other ending is then called the Brazil ending, where we see Vanessa and Gregory on a hill with ice cream. Further evidence for Princess Quest indeed being the true ending. It's called the Brazil ending because the movie called Brazil is about the protagonist going crazy and living in a fantasy world. Simply apply that to Cassie and you get the Brazil ending, where she just loses it in the fantasy world. Now we've covered the main stuff in Ruin, let's go over some of the smaller things like Candy Cadet's new story. It's about a mother, her child, and a monster in the woods, who they trap in the basement. The monster then learns the lullaby that the mother uses to put the child to sleep, and the monster then mimics the lullaby to get the child to open the door and let it free. This is pretty clearly about how the Mimic is trapped in a basement by Gregory, and it then mimics Gregory and his voice to lure Cassie into the basement and let it free. It's basically trying to be a warning to Cassie to not continue and warning her that it's a trap. Pretty interesting stuff, and I'm just personally glad that his stories are easily solvable this time. And of course that he's back. Next I want to talk about the weird wet floor signs that you can deactivate throughout the game, and the Blob, now actually called the Tangle in the files, who appears for like 2 seconds. First of all, I think the Blob is almost definitely made of the piles of construction workers that were killed by the Mimic, and is basically its consequence. All these passages from the book epilogues basically explain how all the workers were tangled up, as well as the endoskeletons too. It also seems pretty clear that the wet floor signs are possessed by the children who died at the Pizzaplex, and we're somehow freeing them by deactivating them, and so it makes sense that the Blob is where all the adults who died at the Pizzaplex went. The construction workers from the books, maybe Edwin and maybe Mr. Burrows, etc. It definitely seems like this whole place just has a load of souls around it to the point the whole place feels haunted. It makes even more sense when you realize that the Blob seems to be against the Mimic as we saw in the Burntrap ending, and most likely stays around the Pizzaplex to further ensure that the Mimic stays underground and hasn't escaped, since like I mentioned earlier, it's basically its consequence. We also see Glamrock Bonnie multiple times in this game, and the actual remains of Glamrock Bonnie in the back of Bonnie Bowl. Fazbear Entertainment has seemed to make the transition from Glamrock Bonnie to Montgomery Gator as the bassist being a passing of the torch of sorts, which is obviously just propaganda for the children, as we all know how Monty really got that position, and we've seen the damage. I do wonder, however, why we can only get to Glamrock Bonnie after deactivating the spirits in the wet floor signs. Maybe we've now put them all into Glamrock Bonnie, I don't know. The future of Glamrock Bonnie is a mystery, exactly like the future of FNAF is. Help Wanted 2 is coming out later this year, along with a movie which will give us plenty to talk about. But I really think that if Help Wanted 2 doesn't branch the story off in a new direction, we may actually get more DLCs for Security Breach, as all the endings are basically cliffhangers, and there's no other way to really continue that story without revisiting the Pizzaplex. In fact, it's possible we get 3 more DLCs, so it truly is 5 Nights at Freddy's, Ruin being night 2. But anyways, that's pretty much it. If you want more Ruin theory talk, Dorko has a fantastic video going in depth into the Mimic and how it perfectly fits in the games, while Ozone also has a fantastic video going more in depth into the Candy Cadet stories. So go check those out too. Hope you enjoyed, have a good day, and I've been gone for a while because I've been working on a big video, so I'm going to get back to doing that. See you guys soon.